There's an unmarked car that no alert, no indication from Waze, which goes to show you need to pay attention. So we're going to send the alert. We're the first one to catch him. Now this brings me to a great topic which I want to talk to you about. We're in Virginia still, and I was able to spot that guy and slow down in time before he was able to light me up with either laser or radar. And I want to just talk about, we focus so much on the countermeasure technology that, the most important radar detector, if you will, is between your ears. And I just want to share a story with you from the past, and something that I came to appreciate. When Radar Roy and I did our cross-country fireball run a good number of years ago, we were making some serious speed at that for parts of that trip, and this Beamer is set at about 172 is the top end of this, and we were going through a very open, flat road. There's a looks like a chase car may be related here. I'm going to mark it again, and another police officer visible. We'll send it. And there he is. So whether they were working together or whether they're two separate enforcement vehicles, but there he is. Okay, if he had radar, it's off, or whether he's running a laser, of course, it wouldn't alert. So at any rate, we were really hauling the mail and in one state and on a highway that was very open at that speed, and we did that for about, I think, about an hour and a half. We were able to do that just continuously. And one thing I learned or came to appreciate from that experience is, even with the M3s, the jammers, the Veil, all the countermeasures that we had, and this was before Waze and Radar Active were even available, effectively, I learned to, what I call, drive ahead of the radar detector, which essentially means generally I drive as if I don't even have a radar detector. In other words, if I'm driving whatever speed I feel comfortable doing, conditions permitting, a detector or a countermeasure isn't going to really give me the increased likelihood that I would want to speed further or more, so to speak. There may be some perceptions out there that, well, radar detectors are for speeders and you're going to speed with it. The reality is, at least for me, my perspective is, if you feel comfortable driving at the pace you're driving at, and the conditions permitting, a detector is a supplementary situational awareness enhancing device, just like any of these other countermeasures. And here I'm in Virginia, got the 3 top effectively M3 remotes that have ever been made, and here's a perfect example. We had a couple ones earlier today with Waze where radar detectors and what have you, they won't be sufficient. So ultimately what it comes down to, especially like in states in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, where there's a lot of hiding spots, particularly in the center medians there, where they have quite a number of hills and, or whatever you want to call them, ramparts, whatever, where they can hide in these turnarounds. You got to really become very aware on your own, because ultimately with the enforcement technology that officers use, LEOs use, they have to see you first, unless they're running constant on radar and then they expect you to fall into it. And then your detectors, of course, is going to alert you to it, and probably Waze as well if you run with it. So, for those instant on encounters or encounters from the rear, laser, any of those types of things, you need to be extremely alert. And you always have to remember that they have to see you first, and in some cases have to really gauge in a relatively short period of time, though, what your speed is and if it merits an attempted clock. So in this perfect example, I'm really scanning the road. I grow eyes behind the back of my head. In some of these states, they shoot on the on-ramps. So you're really going to have to look in your side views, your rear views. I even turn my head often. Get ready to be prepared to slow down, and maybe even back the speed off gently without braking before you come to some areas where the police police are known to hide, or where you think they're going to hide. And, again, Waze is great because even if a Leo isn't at the precisely marked location, if you see a couple of them, here's another one up here, it gives you an indication that I think Leos tend to patrol in certain corridors. Could be close to the barracks. It could be a high accident area conceivably, or a good revenue producing area, quite frankly. So, having something like Waze or even a bona fide alert can help you. I'm going to mark this one as well, so I'll hit the alert report. He's visible, and I'm going to send it, and there I just logged it, and he's issuing the citation now. He's a local sheriff. And you got to use all these tools, but most importantly your head and your eyes, and you have to always be alert. Now, when I speed, conditions permitting, a couple things I like about it is at a certain threshold, and I'm not talking 10 or 15 over, frankly. When you're into the 25, 30, 35 over, some of those states will have higher penalties for that, particularly if you're in state. But keep in mind, one thing I like about driving at again, conditions permitting, where you're not weaving in and out of traffic like this, and I'm going to be in the left lane here a little bit. I'll be pulling over in a second. It's a 70-mile-an-hour road right now, and I'm doing about, 95. I'll be flirting with 100 shortly. The one thing I like about it is that the propensity for an officer to come up, or the likelihood for an officer to come up behind you, is reduced in most cases, because officers generally just cruise the highways at about 15 to 20 over. Not many go 25 over as they patrol. So I find when you get above that threshold, the likelihood, everything's pretty much coming at you in the front. That's not entirely always the case, but I think by and large that's the case. So again, in Florida we had this situation where I was driving, and as I say, I was driving ahead of the radar detectors. I had aerial measured miles for enforcement. In fact, somebody else in the race was ticketed for that. And you got to be very aware of all these different types of things. VASCAR, potentially, lines, measured miles, and you got to drive accordingly. I know it can be a hassle to slow down and speed up a lot, but you don't have to jam on the brakes in these areas. You just have to take your foot off the gas, back it off a little bit, and be ready. Be really ready so you're not surprised. And I also find that it makes me, I believe, a better driver, because you're much more alert. You're just much more alert and focused on your surrounding environments. And provided you're not really distracted, Waze, you have to take your eyes off the road for a little bit. So you have to be a little, very mindful of that. You're not going to be texting or emailing or browsing the web, but use it responsibly, and when you can. In some cases, if the traffic's too tight and you don't really want to do that and take a chance of weaving or swerving, or somebody else making an abrupt change of lanes in front of you and not signaling, and then all of a sudden you've got some kind of traffic condition yourself. So again, I'll look around here on an on-ramp, look in the side views, rear views, what have you, and drive ahead of your radar detectors no matter what the speed is. That's about I think the best advice I can impart to my fellow enthusiast drivers. And drive safe and drive responsibly, and know you're taking on that risk. And hopefully this has been educational, and we'll see you soon, guys. Take care.